Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I am Stu Mccann, filling in for Gary Harris. We wish him a speedy recovery. He's a little under the weather right now, but he will be back, and I know he's watching, so Gary, hang in there. The SEC wrapped up their spring meetings. That was the big thing last week, Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban. That was the meeting of the minds, if you will. But as far as the actual accomplishments, what they were able to get done in Destin, maybe not as much as some people predicted, but let's get into it. One thing Nick Saban says they did do was maybe get into some of the rule changes that fall within the status quo. He expects changes to be made on the chop blocking rule. There's also discussion on, of course, NIL and maybe the transfer portal. Nick Saban last week at a event in Mountain Brook said that the SEC and also college football needs to handle some of the education, maybe school people up on how to deal with contracts, agents, and paying some taxes. No decision was made on the schedule for the 2025 season. Half are leaning towards a 9-game schedule, the other half on an 8-game schedule. We'll get more into that. But when it comes to NIL, when it comes to what was actually achieved there at the SEC meetings, maybe it was more of just trying to get on the same page when so much is spent talking back and forth at one another through the media, through some press conferences. Here's what Coach Saban had to say about NIL and how people are trying to work out and see really what they want that to look like.
I'm sure that we got a lot of good people trying to create opportunities that are going to be beneficial to players, but also keep a competitive balance in college athletics, and there'll be transparency in what people are able to do, and how we can not allow this to be something that gives people opportunities to create advantages for themselves that are beyond the competitive development of players.
Rodney, I think that's very similar to things that we've heard Coach Saban say before. And as in terms of the NIL, where it's a wait and see, because we all kind of know how we think the rules should go, depending, I guess, maybe on your fan base. But I don't think that there's really any news to update other than just the fact that there was more discussions on that type of thing last week.
You're saying the Aggies like it
Well,
the way
I'm
it
just
is.
saying, you know what? I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. Certainly not after what happened a few weeks ago with Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher.
Well, no, I'm with you. I mean, we've talked about it for weeks and weeks on this show, and really, what else can you say? I mean, there needs to be some uniformity. There needs to be some rules. There needs to be some guidelines. Everybody needs to be on the same playing field. And how you use this, again, when you look at one school or one program that's using it to purchase players, if you want to put it that way, then you look at a lot of other schools who kind of took the different route, and they're bringing players in, they're recruiting them in the traditional way. You bring them into your program, they're earning opportunities for the NIL, which is the spirit of it. Once they're here in your program. Again, uniformity. There has to be some rules and guidelines, but not only that, and I said this last week, there's got to be someone to govern this. And there's got to be someone to enforce these rules and guidelines. And until they get that uniformity, until they get that governing system, I think it's going to be the wild, wild west out there.
That is absolutely true. Could not agree anymore. But again, I don't think that anything after the SEC meetings changed anything that anybody has thought about that. One thing that they did, I guess, just push to the end of at least the calendar year, the football schedule. We mentioned when Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC, which is set to be 2025. Right now, it's an 8-game schedule. Now they're playing with the formats between an 8-game schedule and a 9-game schedule. I think most people think that 9-game schedule is going to be where they end up eventually, maybe by the end of the calendar year.
Seems like that's where everyone's leaning, Stu. Or I say everyone. The majority seem to be leaning with the 9-game schedule. Now, the question is, and I thought Nick Saban, who has really supported that 9-game SEC schedule for a while, he brought up a great point, which is, if you do add that 9th game, what does that do to your conference in terms of in relation to other conferences, how they're scheduling in their conferences, because you certainly don't want to put the SEC at a disadvantage. This is a very difficult conference. I mean, it's the most difficult conference to go through. The grind of 8 games is difficult enough. If you add that 9th game, are you actually hurting the opportunities maybe that some of your teams might have when it comes to postseason?
One other note that Coach Saban last week at his Knicks Kids charity golf event did say all of the signees are on campus along with the 3 transfer players, Tyler Harrell, Tyler Steen, and Miles Klitzman. So I think that the days of kind of sweating out whether they're going to get through that NCAA clearinghouse, I think those are done. I don't know if we have to worry about that. I don't know if any school has to really worry about that stuff anymore.
Well, yeah, and you're right. They're all here, and it's a great group. It's one of the top recruiting classes in the country. And you mentioned the 3, the transfers that are the additional transfers that join the program. So, look, I really look forward to getting to this, the summer workouts and then into August camp.
That's right. And now it is time for Coach Talk. We heard from Coach Saban at the Knicks Kids event last week. He was talking about NIL, but what you may not have heard was Coach Saban was offered $5,000 from a young LSU fan to leave the Tide and head back to Baton Rouge. Here's Coach.
He made an offer for me to retire. Or come back to LSU, one or the other. But I think LSU has a good coach, and they have a lot of good players, so we've had a lot of competitive games with them, and I'm sure there's be no different in the future when it comes to competition versus LSU.
A little bit of levity. The Southeastern Conference did approve future regular season schedules and postseason formats for 6 sports, including basketball, women's and men's basketball, soccer, men's tennis, women's tennis, and softball to accommodate the addition of Oklahoma and Texas beginning in the 2025-2026 athletic year. Men's basketball will play 2 permanent opponents, home and away, 1 rotating opponent, home and away, plus 12 remaining teams in single contests, either home or away. The future contest, once again, that is yet to be agreed upon, but they hope to have something by the end of the calendar year. Still to come on Tider Insider TV, 2 college football legends are on the ballot, hoping to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. We'll tell you more about that. Plus, we also break down what we know about the most recent commit for the Alabama basketball team. There he is, Sam Walters, all 6'8", 180 pounds. We'll break down the film with our Tider Insider, Rodney Orr, coming up next. Plus, we got all your questions, comments, emails. They're coming your way. There is the information that you need, 348-9882, or email us, TITV@WVUA23. We will be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns right after the break. Welcome back to TITV, sponsored by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Stu Mccann, filling in for Gary Harris. And Alabama basketball received a big pickup. I got big because he's 6'8", 180 pounds, Sam Walters, for the class of 2023. He's from Villages High School in Florida. He committed to the Crimson Tide, and this was a big get because you see some of the moves that he's got there. He's a consensus 2023 top 100 recruit and ranked as high as 27th overall by rivals in the class of 2023. Currently, he's taken part in a tournament in Las Vegas. He recorded 24 points, made 5 3-pointers in a close scrimmage at that Pangos All-America camp. And over the weekend, because of that performance, more than likely, he is a Pangos All-American top 30. And that game, the Pangos All-American top 30 game, is coming up, I think, earlier today, streaming. But you see some of the things that he can do. Not your regular 6'8" guy. He can step out, not only the enforcer inside, but has a nice passing handle, can shoot the shot a little bit. The Crimson Tide compare him, you're going to like this, Rodney, Herb Jones.
Herb Jones.
Herb Jones,
okay.
Not too bad if they get the second incarnation of Herb Jones for Nate Oates and the crew. What do you think?
I tell you what, at this stage, he probably shoots the three better than Herb. You know, when Herb was coming out. But listen, you're right about the All-American camp that he's attending right now. He's invitee only, invitation only. He's out there. He's lit it up. He's done extremely well. 6'8", you mentioned that, 180 pounds, a little thin, have to get a little bigger. But he's got all the skills. He handles the ball well. And again, Nate Oates likes that three-point shooting. This guy can really do it.
Well, he's got 2 years of high school left too. So that 180 pounds, that's not anything to focus on because again, he's just going into his junior year, so he's certainly got time to fill out.
He'll certainly fill out. A little thin now.
That's right. There is also a lot of football recruiting to talk about. We always talk about the football recruiting. We know about the what happened this past weekend with a big recruiting visit. This coming weekend is the one that's highlighted by Arch Manning. But who else should we be kind of looking out for? Or what have you heard?
You know, Stu, I've been following this a long time, obviously. Now, again, the summer official visits are kind of a new trend, so I don't really want to exaggerate here, but I think this could be one of the best months in terms of getting top prospects on campus for official visits in a summer month that I can remember. And again, it is a new trend. It's a fairly new trend. So, but yeah, you mentioned Arch Manning. He's certainly expected to be here. And also Eli Holstein is expected to come back. I'm not sure it's going to be his official visit, but he is the quarterback that's committed to Alabama. Caden Proctor is the #1 offensive tackle in the country, according to some, out of Des Moines, Iowa. Richard Young might be the #1 running back in the country out of Lehigh Acres, Florida. And the guy I really like, Francis Maui-Goa, a 5-star offensive lineman from IMG Academy. Another one of those kind of in the line, Evan Neal, J.C. Latham, Tyler Booker. All those guys ended up at Alabama. Will Francis Maui-Goa, I tell you, he's really, really good.
I actually heard you on the radio this week in talking about just how big it is to have these on-campus visits back after COVID. You talked about all the kids who are here on campus. That makes a big deal.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I mean, when you have an opportunity to get them on campus, you're building those relationships with them to have the opportunity to see your program up front. Now, remember, just a couple of years ago, they were taking these virtual tours on the internet. So it's a big difference.
That's right. Former Tide standouts Chris Samuels and Antonio Langham are on the ballot for the College Football Hall of Fame. Langham was a unanimous All-American from 1993, as well as the Jim Thorpe Award winner, helped seal that win in the national championship game over the Miami Hurricanes in 1993. It's Samuels' third time on the Hall of Fame ballot. He won the Outland Trophy in 1999, was a unanimous All-American that season. 16 players or coaches who coached or played in the SEC are currently on this College Football Hall of Fame ballot for the class of 2023. We are going to go now to the commercial break. Your emails, your phone calls, your questions for myself and Mr. Tider Insider Rodney Orr coming up right after the break. Call in. There's your information right now, 348-WVUA-9882, or email us at titv@wvua.com. It is the place to come, the only one with the Tider Insider logo TV. You've seen it, we've got it, and it's coming up. Your questions next after the break. This season's Alabama-Gonzaga basketball showdown will reportedly be part of the CM Newton Classic at Legacy Arena on December 17th. That is a report from CBS Sports' John Rothstein. Last season, Alabama upset number 3 Gonzaga 92-81 in Seattle, not in Spokane. So it would make sense that this season is a neutral site game too, only in Alabama's neck of the woods. Once again, the report, December 17th in Birmingham. We head to the phone lines. First up, it's Sammy in Walker County, the Tomato Man. Sammy, how are you?
Okay, you, Rodney. Great talk with y'all guys. I want to send out the speedy recovery for Gary, and we're all thinking about him. Hope he gets feeling better and everything. I'm sure he will. And good talk with y'all guys. I just was going to comment on the football team this year, and I just think this year it's we're loaded. in all categories. Need some help on the offensive line, but I've got confidence in the new offensive line coach. And I've voiced this before, but never voiced it this early. I believe when it's all said and done, it's going to be the Alabama Crimson Tide taking the crown once again.
Well, thank you so much, Sammy. That good to hear. But the offensive line, certainly, that is one of those positions that everybody's kind of has curious questions about. How that is going to look, what do you think?
Well, I think when you look at the interior part of the offensive line, I think with the experience that they have coming back, obviously you have Darian Dalcourt and Seth McLaughlin, both with starting experience at the center spot. You've got a great right guard, I think, in Emil Ekiyor. He's a potential All-American. You look at Javian Cohen at the left guard spot. I think he can be an outstanding player as well. He started every game last season. It's the tackle spots. We've talked about that. I think if Tyler Steen can step in and be a really consistent player, which I know he certainly can be, he's got a lot of experience in the SEC. Then at the right tackle spot, can J.C. Latham nail that down? He's got a ton of potential. A lot of competition there. We'll see what happens. But I think the offensive line can really be good.
I think you said the word. It's the big bonus word of the day. It's consistency. Who can develop that consistency? Because the talent is right there. Who can consistently do it without any lapses of that? We go now to the email question of the day brought by KDM Services, serving your family like our family. It's an HVAC company, great product and great sponsor. Is Bryce Young the best QB ever at Alabama? That's Robert in Tuscaloosa. Certainly a lot of good quarterbacks have come through, but there is one quarterback Heisman Trophy winner.
Well, I think this. I think when you look at most people always, as Alabama people, thought Namath and Stabler were the two greatest ever. But since them, since the 60s, you'd have to say certainly Tua, Mac Jones, and Bryce would all be in that argument if you wanted to have a debate about it. But when you look at some of the things, I think what Bryce Young did in some of the circumstances he played in, there was times when, he didn't have the protection, but he still made plays. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he kept them in the national championship game with some plays. I mean, listen, he didn't have any of his receivers. You know the situation at wide receiver. He still threw for nearly 400 yards. So there's no question about it. Bryce Young would certainly it'd be hard to say he's not the greatest that's ever played here.
I think one thing that we all have to see, because I think Tua Tagovailoa played so well that when he came back for his junior season or sophomore season, the expectations were so high they had raised. And is Bryce Young, those expectations that he has after one season as a starter, will he be able to raise the bar a little bit more? Because that's what everybody's looking for. They're looking at Bryce differently now than they did at this point last year.
Well, you know how Alabama fans are.
Yeah.
I mean, the expectations are going to be higher. And, can Bryce Young meet or exceed what happened last year? Only time will tell, but there's no question about it. He's going to have some tools, he's going to have some weapons, and I think the offensive line is going to be better.
Absolutely. Still to come on TITV, we'll discuss the next week holds and what it holds for some former Tide golfers, plus more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. See the information on the screen below. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call, send us an email, or contact us on social media. TITV returns right after this. Former Alabama golfer Davis Riley punched his ticket for next week's U.S. Open. Monday in the Columbus, Ohio sectional, Riley shot a 2-round score of 11 under par, finishing third in qualifying for the U.S. Open. That makes 4 next week for the Open in Maryland. Riley, Justin Thomas, Nick Dunlap, and Davis Shore will all be in the field, so look forward to that. One more week of PGA and then the U.S. Open, and that is a big deal. We come back and go straight back to the phone lines. Reg in Birmingham is right here with us. Reg, what's up?
Yes, I want to change what I was going to talk about to Rodney. Rodney, our offensive coordinator, what is his name?
Bill O'Brien?
Yeah. Is he interested in coaching at Alabama, or is he looking for a job somewhere else?
I think he's going to be here this year, Reg. I don't know exactly what you were referring to, but I think that, again, what happens after next season, we'll see. I mean, there's been some discussion that maybe eventually he goes back to the NFL, either as a head coach or as an offensive coordinator. But at this point, he's back here in Tuscaloosa and ready to go in 2022.
One thing that I think a lot of people have already mentioned, but you can't say it enough, the consistency on the coaching staff. This is the first time Alabama will have its offensive and defensive coordinator back, both of them back, bringing that cohesion to the field.
Yeah, I think that's really important. When you look at, you have some players coming back offensively. I think for Bryce Young, having Bill O'Brien back, I think that familiarity from last year certainly will be helpful. Then when you're trying to incorporate some new players, some new receivers, I think that certainly the continuity is big. And Pete Golding now going into his 4th season as the defensive coordinator, I think that continuity is really big as well.
That's right. Look forward to, August can't get here fast enough. Only July and SEC Media Days first. Still to come on Tider Insider Television, we'll take a look at some of the former Alabama football players who are showing off on the diamond. You can't miss video coming up next. So we will be right back with more Tider Insider TV. Check a look at that skyline, but don't forget to come right back here on TITV. Some guys got it, doesn't matter the sport. Jalen Hurts showed off his bat flip Sunday, delivering a walk-off home run in a celebrity all-star softball game in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Great look, and look at everybody swarming the field. Some of those guys, including his Eagles teammate Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, Shaheem Carter, Mack Wilson, and Jalen Waddle, all taking part in this game. Very fun to see these guys not on the football field, able to cut up like that. Thank you very much for tuning in to Tider Insider, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. We leave you with some video of head coach Nick Saban's golfing event, the Knicks Kids Golf Tournament in Mountain Brook at Old Overton. Don't forget, right now, 10:30 for the replay. See you next week.